What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Hey, welcome back. Episode 22. This may end up being the shortest one because I have a train to catch and I wanted to get the podcast recorded before I head out for my meeting today. So this is likely to be short and sweet and straight to the point, but still packed with value. It's been another great week, as always. Icing on the cake this week has got to be the sunshine if you're here in the UK. 3 days in a row of sunshine, no rain, no grey clouds. Makes Zoe very, very happy. So it's been a good week and new clients, new work coming through. Very, very exciting. So my 3 light bulbs for this week. Now, the first one actually links in with the workshop delivered yesterday. It's the monthly workshop on delegation, one of the workshops that I run every month for those that are working with me, in particular for the leadership community, also for clients as well. And the first light bulb is around delegating to a person, delegating to a system, and both are valid. Often we think about delegation as being delegation to a person, whereas actually in this era of AI and systemization, we can actually delegate to systems as well, and both definitely have their place. It's a conversation that is coming up more in leadership sessions where leaders are thinking more about how they can use AI to support them in their work. And our work with our teams, that individual one-to-one basis, that's that high-level work that we really want to prioritize. So if systems are able to take some of that workload at that lower level, and that frees up our time to work on the strategic parts of our role and work with the people involved in our role, then it can work to a huge advantage. We picked this up in a client session this week, and we were actually talking about not just their workload, but also their home workload. And I know many of you who listen to this podcast will be balancing the challenges of work demands and home demands. And this is where system delegation can really come in. Now, one of the things that I share with the leadership community each month is a check-in sheet that helps them to reflect and review the month that has just passed, and also then plan the month ahead. And then it has an AI prompt that they can copy and paste their answers and the AI prompt into the AI tool of their choice, and it helps to plan out the month. Now, this is something that I've been doing for a couple of months now. And this month, I've started to use it to plan out my weekly tasks as well. So it plans out the month, gives me the challenges that I want to tackle that month, and then also all of the tasks and activities that I need to do to tackle that challenge or to create momentum and drive things forward. So this month, what I've been trialing is copying and pasting my to-do list in to AI so that it can help me really challenge myself of what are my ascend tasks, what are my anchor tasks, and what are my avoid tasks? What's appearing on that list that really doesn't need to be me and can be delegated to my VA or perhaps automated into a system? So it really offers me that challenge. I then update my to-do list, and at the end of the week, I copy and paste it back in. It identifies where I've been spending my time, what I've been prioritizing, and what needs to be passed on to the next week, or whether or not the time has passed and it now needs to be deleted or perhaps delayed for another time. So we talked about this in the client session. I shared the tool that I use and how I make it work. And the client talked about how they can not only use this in the workplace environment, but actually be able to use it for their home as well and have everybody in their household get involved with what needs to be done, which, for a lot of us, just reducing that mental load of having to think about things on a daily basis can really, really help. And knowing that that system, that tool is creating the task, prioritizing those tasks and allocating those tasks out can make a huge difference. So this can often remove the lack of people as the barrier to being more efficient and more effective. There's so much now that we can delegate to systems, and those tools are available to us, something we can do straight away as well. We don't have to have a huge knowledge of AI to be able to do this, and we can pop that information in, tell it what we need it to do, and that information will then generate into the to-do lists and delegate it to different people along with timescales and everything that needs to be done. So there will be some of you that have got the ability in your work to use AI agents that will summarize your calendar and your inbox, help you to prepare for meetings, help you to follow up on those meetings. So you're not now choosing between having to do it yourself or trying to find somebody in your team that can do it for you. And especially when we know and we recognize that our teams are also perhaps at capacity, if there's not a learning and development need for them to take on that task, then we don't want to overload them or overwhelm them. So using systems to be able to do that and make us more efficient in the process is a huge advantage. Lightbulb 2, on a similar theme, as well as being more efficient with the time that we have and the tasks that we've got, we want to make sure that we are protecting the time for the things that are most important. And I would say one of the biggest challenges that clients bring to me is the number of meetings that they're in, especially once you are in that middle management phase. So you've got people higher than you inviting you to meetings. You've got people in your teams inviting you to meetings, and knowing which meetings to be in can be a real challenge. We want to really protect the time that we have and make sure that we are only in the meetings that are ready to go so that decisions can be made, that has everybody done the work that needs to be done. And also, are we in the room when we need to be? So we do have this challenge that with technology that it makes it very easy to be able to invite lots of people into meetings. Whereas back in the day, you would have to think about who you were inviting to meetings, how many people could you fit around the table, how far did people have to travel. You would be a lot more considerate and a lot more conscious around who you invited to be in the room. With technology, it makes it so much easier to invite additional people in and ask people to jump in on calls. So we need to be very conscious, very aware of what we are accepting into our calendars. We need to make sure that we have time in our calendars to do the work that is coming to us in those meetings, but also all of the priority tasks that we have set out for that week. We want to make sure that we are not having our calendar hijacked by what's important for other people so that we can protect our ascend time work. This isn't about saying no. It's not an automatic no. It's qualifying when we say yes. And we want to check in with why we are being invited into that meeting. So the client that I was working with was talking through, the back-to-back meetings. We go through how much time they actually have to complete their strategic work, and it's very little because of the amount of meetings that they're in. We talked about what questions they could ask to help identify whether or not they are needed in that room. What value will they be adding in? And the two questions that the client came up with was, what's the desired outcome? What is the aim of this meeting? What's the objective of this meeting? What are we trying to achieve by all being in the room? Because then we can identify who needs to be in the room to make that happen. Do we need a decision maker? Or do we need a subject matter expert? Or do we need both? And then the very clear question that needs to be asked, what specifically do you need from me? This helps you to filter out meetings where you're not actually needed. And it also forces the people who are arranging those meetings to clarify their thinking before they are booking your time. And then you can protect your calendar without making you the person who always says no. This is clarifying why you are needed in the room, and also to help you to ensure that you have what is needed when you step into that meeting. It also means that you have the opportunity to really understand what is needed from you in that meeting And also then that means that you can fully prepare for that meeting so that when you step into that room, you are efficient, you are effective, and it's not only best use of your time, you are also respecting and making best use of other people's time and also everything that needs to happen in that meeting to be able to go ahead. And finally, light bulb 3, when your personality type doesn't match the rest of your executive team. And this is often that authenticity of us being able to be us when we're in the workplace. And that can be a real challenge for a lot of us as we get to a more senior level. And especially if we look around the room and we don't see people who we identify with or people who we feel are like us from a character point of view, behaviors point of view, values point of view, can be a real challenge. Now, a lot of you will be familiar with DISC profiles and different personality or behavior assessments, and this helps to increase our awareness of how different people like to approach things. One of the biggest challenges can often be when you have a different profile to others in the room. So if you are a fast-paced person that likes to focus on the tasks, then it can be a real challenge for you to work in an environment where you're with lots of reflective, people-focused people. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not reflective and people-focused. It just means that the way you approach things are at a faster pace and you are looking at what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, which can often be the opposite to somebody who is looking at who needs to do it. And often because they're more reflective, it's at that slightly slower pace. Now, we need all of these different characters in the room. And I would argue very strongly that as challenging as it can be, we do need all of these different personality types, all of these different characters and behaviors in the room, because that is what creates that diversity. That is what creates a great high-performing team. However, it can be very draining. It can feel exhausting because we have to adapt to fit into that environment. So quite often we can feel drained coming out of meetings like that, especially when they're long all-day meetings. It can feel very draining because we are just checking in with our own behaviors, our own self-awareness, our own EQ comes into play here, where we are looking at being able to adapt our approach to create the best fit for the people that are in the room and the situations that we're talking through in that room. It's that flexibility, that adaptability that is really important in leadership. Being able to flex and adapt your approach, your behaviors, your style to get the job done and work really well with the people around you. But it will feel draining. If you are in an environment where people are very different, that's because you are switching on, you are very conscious, you're reading the room, you're reading people to be able to influence a really positive outcome. It does not necessarily mean that you are not a good fit for that environment. And I think that's really important to stress. However, you may have concerns that actually this is not the environment for you. If you are continuously and consistently in an environment where you feel like you are having to work in a different way, and this is not a way that feeds into that high performance level for you, then that's a question to consider. Actually, sometimes the exhaustion isn't about your capability, it's about the constant energy cost of operating against your personality, your character in a mismatched team culture. So, question to consider, perhaps after you have listened to this podcast, is how often is this happening? Under what circumstances is this happening? And is this something that you can prepare for and flex and adapt and that's okay? Or is this something that actually you are not able to show up consistently in this way and perhaps need to consider whether or not this environment and this culture is a good fit for you? It's a big question, but definitely one to reflect on. And if you need some help reflecting on that, do feel free to get in touch. I appreciate that's a big question and a big question to leave you hanging on this episode, but certainly one that is food for thought. So I'm going to leave it there. I am going to dash off and get my train. I would love to hear what's really resonated with you from today's episode and what you're going to do as a result. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. Have a fantastic week ahead, and I will be back soon for the next episode. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Lightbulb.